law student who murdered his father and buried his body in concrete has been jailed for life. Mark Alexander will serve a minimum term of 16 years for killing his 70-year-old father Samuel at their family home in Drayton Parslow near Milton Keynes last September. Alexander was caught after neighbours became suspicious and alerted police.
Part of bankrupt firm Connaught has been saved after administrators struck a deal to sell its social housing division. The multi-million-pound deal comes just 2 days after the firm went bust. The company provides services including bin collections and housing repairs. In Norwich, it employs 600 people and also has contracts in Essex. Now, Labour and the Greens are celebrating council gains in Norwich after the biggest test of public opinion since the general election.
Fresh elections were forced after the new coalition revoked a plan by the last government to increase the powers of Norwich City Council with unitary status. David Hughes reports.
After losing both their Norwich MPs in the past year or so, Labour now had something to celebrate. They held on to power on Norwich City Council by gaining 1 seat from the Tories.
It's been a pretty tough old time. We think we've brought the city through the worst of the recession, but now we've got to face the worst of the coalition cuts.
The Greens have been making gains on the City Council for 8 years. They had high hopes of overtaking Labour last night, but the single gain from the Liberal Democrats wasn't enough. The Greens are still the main opposition to Labour on Norwich City Council with 14 seats. Labour with 16 are 4 short of an outright majority. The Lib Dems pegged back to 5 seats and the Tories to 4. They lost the only seat they were contesting last night. Former Conservative group leader Anthony Little ousted in Bowthorpe. David Hughes, Anglia News, Norwich.
Next, the second part of our special report on former Speedway world champion Michael Lee.
Yes, last night we heard how he turned to drugs and ended up in prison after being banned from the sport. Tonight, Donovan Blake reports on how he's put his life back on track.
He wasted so many chances to resurrect his Speedway career as a rider, and he was hardly out of the headlines. Aborted comebacks, clashes with authority, prison, even bankruptcy. Checkered and controversial, never a dull moment with Michael Lee. Now he's grateful for the most recent opportunity to get his life back on track.
When I came out of prison after the 3 years, Carl Stonehewer, he was just starting up in the Grand Prix, and his father phoned me and asked if I could help out, and I kind of hadn't been involved in Speedway for a little while, but I said, well, yeah, I'll come and have a look and do what we can, and it ended up 3 years later. I'd worked for Stoney pretty well full-time doing all the Grand Prix, and it was fairly successful, and obviously that led on to other work as well with other riders, and really that's what's turned the tables for me.
That break has helped Lee become one of the most highly respected bike tuners on the Speedway scene, a regular on the Grand Prix circuit. Although his efforts to re-establish himself were threatened just 3 years ago. He escaped jail for growing cannabis to feed his habit, but was ordered to go on a rehab course as part of his punishment.
I don't really like to think about that part of my life too much anymore. I'm back involved in it, and I'm proud to be back involved and hopefully helping youngsters and for the good of the sport, hopefully.
Lee has decided the time is right to commit his story to print now that he's back from the brink. But is the sport which he cherishes as good now compared to when he was at his peak on the track?
It's a razzmatazz sport, it's exciting, there's young riders out there that are all pretty extreme, and hopefully the young people will start coming in and supporting it soon. It would be nice to go all the way with someone from the early stages and take them up to the top. You know, whether that can happen or not, I don't know. I've always had big ambitions, but if you don't set your targets high, then you run out of targets to meet, you know, so I'll set them high and I'll aim at that all the time and hope it comes off.
And perhaps help them keep on the straight and narrow as well?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think if I can't tell them, no one can, so yeah, that will be a major part of it for sure.
Over the line and just listen to the crowd.
Donovan Blake, Anglia News.
Staying with sport, and championship clubs return to action tomorrow after the international break. Ipswich go to Portsmouth with manager Roy Keane chasing a Premier League defender on loan to cover a growing injury list, while Barnsley's visit to Norwich means a return for defender Jason Shackle and manager Mark Robbins.
They should get a good reception from the fans, but they know and I know that as soon as that whistle whistle blows, every Norwich fan will want Norwich to win.
Listen, you're always on the lookout. It's like everything else in life, and if you think there's a player that you can get, and as I said, we're in discussion with a club at the moment, and it's all fairly positive at the moment, and maybe something will happen next week, but we just wait and see.
In League One, Colchester are one of 9 clubs who could theoretically finish the day top of the table. They're at home to Plymouth Argyle.
And in League Two, Southend hope to make it 3 league wins in a row against Northampton striker Barry Corr is available again after missing last week's game through injury.
And if you're a fan or a player at Felixstowe and Walton United, then you may want to watch Anglia tonight on Monday. It's FA Cup weekend, and following their win over Team Bury in the previous round, our cameras will be at tomorrow's tie at home to Wellingborough.